warfare is really terrible,
And like
and it
Fallujah.
inevitably exacts a high price from its participants. So, no, I don't think they are, and they will use a lot of firepower to spare their soldiers' lives as much as
Right.
possible. But in the meantime, people are figuring it out, and I think Hezbollah will attack. We are supposed, according to public statements, to intervene and attack Hezbollah to take the burden off the Israeli Air Force so that it can continue to function on Gaza. I would fully expect an open rebellion or revolt on the West Bank in Palestine by the Palestinian Arabs who are there. That hasn't happened yet, but I would expect it. And then I would expect enormous pressure in Egypt on the government and say, what are we doing to help these people in Gaza? Why don't we intervene to stop the mass murder of the Arabs in Gaza? And I think that pressure will result in Egypt's intervention into the conflict.
Mm.
At that point, I think you're going to have Mr. Erdogan who will show up and tell General Sisi, I'm here. Let me know what you need. I'll do everything I possibly can. I would expect Iran to do something similar. Syria, of course, is effectively already in the fight. We have 1,000 soldiers sitting up in the eastern corner of Syria, which Donald Trump rightly wanted to get out,
and they didn't listen to him, right? They rebelled.
They listened. They disobeyed.
Disobeyed. There you go. Yeah.
And he wanted to get us out of Iraq as well. All of our troops in Iraq and in Syria are going to be under a very severe threat because, again, the Turks and the Iranians are far more powerful than any of their Arab neighbors. They can actually execute complex operations with missiles and ground forces and so forth. Then there's the problem of us sitting at sea. Now, I'm sure that we will sit a long ways from Israel. That would be the intelligent thing to do to prevent our vessels from being easily attacked. But that's also very difficult on pilots trying to deliver ordnance against targets in southern Lebanon, especially if they're flying from somewhere west of Greece, almost to Sicily. Now the pilot delivers his ordnance. He's got to refuel. He may have to land in Israel. We don't know what the conditions in Israel will be in terms of rockets and missiles falling. In the meantime, however good the claims may be about the performance of Iron Dome, the numbers of projectiles, the numbers of things falling on the Israelis is simply too great to stop. In other words, you're going to break through. Any air defense system can be overwhelmed if you fire enough missiles and so forth at it, and then eventually destroyed. We've seen that in Ukraine. We've seen it in the Donbass. This is a fact of life in war. And then there's the issue of how much more can we ship when they need it. We've already diverted 155 millimeter ammunition from Ukraine to Israel, which of course makes infinite sense. But then again, Ukraine is in ruins. We've made a terrible mess of that.
Yeah.
And my great fear, and what I wrote about in the American Conservative when I wrote this op-ed saying avoiding Armageddon, is at the end of this process, I don't want Israel to look like Ukraine, destroyed.
Right.
And I'm afraid that no one will intervene to stop any of this. And the way you stop it is very straightforward. Most American presidents, when they thought the Israelis were going too far that might precipitate a larger problem, have intervened and said, stop, that's enough, pull back. Most recently, during the 73 war, we said, that's enough. If you've crossed the Suez Canal, get back on the other side. And they did. And we got a good agreement ultimately, and have had good relations between Israel and Egypt all these years. In fact, we know the Egyptians did warn the Israelis about what eventually happened in Gaza. So, when is someone going to stand up and say, look, we love Israel, but unconditional support for an action in Gaza that could precipitate a regional war that will not only drag us in, but will probably destroy Israel, doesn't make a lot of sense to us.
And the irony is, isn't this exactly what Hamas wants? Don't they want to be at the heart, at the very center of the worldwide Islamic unification? And doesn't that mean then that Israel and the United States, at this point in their reactions, are giving Hamas exactly what they always wanted?
Well, I can't provide you with tangible, concrete proof of strategic genius in Hamas. That may be on somebody's minds. I think they may have underestimated the impact of their operation as well. I don't think we can say that. I don't. It could work out that way. I think, Steve, let's be frank. I mean, it certainly looks bad.
Yeah.
It certainly looks like the Israelis are about to jump into a giant bear trap. There's no question about it. But the good news is that if we were able to intervene now and say, look, you've got to stop, no more, hold back. If you don't hold back, we will withdraw our forces. You tell that to the Israelis, they'll stop.
Right.
Because right now they are confident that they have unconditional support to
Right.
do whatever they want to do. And we don't do that.
No.
I mean, that was the great failure in 1914 with the German emperor.
Right.
He said, well, if that's what the Austrians want to do, we're bound to support them. Let them do it. Insane.
You're right.
He should
Right.
have said, outrageous. We're not going to war with Russia and France over Serbia.
Right.
Are you crazy?
Right.
And of course, the Russians should never have intervened and should have told the Serbs, behave, stop being idiots. I'm not taking Russia into war over Serbia. Nobody did it. And we had the First World War. We don't want to go through that. And then finally, there's this point. We've got to keep this in mind. Iran has supported Russia throughout this entire process with Ukraine.
Hmm.
Russia is not going to abandon Iran.
Iran. Right.
If we decide to attack it with the goal of destroying Iran, which is what I hear in Washington all the time, we will ultimately end up confronting Russia. And the Russians are obviously going to do business with the Turks.
Right.
They're not normal friends or allies, but under the circumstances, why should they hold back? And this is one of the things I've said the Israelis made a big mistake when they decided to suddenly turn and support this corrupt criminal regime in Kiev. They
Yeah.
stuck with Moscow. Moscow has been very good to the Israelis,
Right.
has always accommodated them, gone out
Right.
of his way to do so, told the Iranians if they come into Syria, they're targets, and he's not going to stop it. He
Right.
turned off the air defense systems for us when we insisted that we wanted to launch cruise missiles, even though they told us it was stupid and it made no sense, and they were right. But they said, fine, if that's what you want to do,
Right.
we'll accommodate you. Why would you destroy that relationship with a major power? But Mr. Netanyahu and his government did that. It's
Yeah.
now coming back to haunt them. The Russians aren't going to go out of their way for the Israelis. So then finally, who else is left? Well, you have India and China. And the
Hmm.
Indians right now, they're quite happy to do business with the Israelis, and so are the Chinese. But under the circumstances, not right now, and maybe not again as a result
Right.
of this terrible war. And the Chinese have already said that since we talk constantly about destroying China,